Sneaker business talk. It's the Soul Material Podcast.
And we're here at the Soul Material Podcast. As we're bringing you an exclusive news segment. We have bringing you an interview. All right, so it's not even about us, not about the Sharks, not about the OG. It's about our guests. We're invited someone into our house, and it's a pleasure and an honor to bring to you. We have Xavier Jones, footwear designer, worked with multiple brands, and we got him in the mix for exclusive interview. So we appreciate you, Xavier, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us with the Soul Material Podcast, and giving us some of that sneaker business talk as we love to do over here, and giving our audience a lot of clarity over popularity, because Soul Material is all about the details, living into the details, all the stories behind the scenes, and you literally live behind the scenes and bring things to life for this sneaker culture. So it's going to give the floor to you just to introduce yourself and give you brief background on how you came up in the footwear industry, and then we'll get into some specific sneaker discussion. But first, just let the people know a little bit about you, Xavier, for us, please.
Yeah, man. I'm Xavier Jones. I'm right now color footwear design lead for Nike basketball, particularly for LeBron James product. From Flint, Michigan, lifelong sneakerhead, man, always trying to figure out how to crack the code to get into the industry. Older cousins kind of was that initial inspiration or spark for me, being they're 8 to 10 years older. So me trying to be cool to the older kids kind of got me into footwear. And man, it's been a lifelong journey chasing the opportunity to potentially get myself into the industry and have an impact, or at least try to, I should say. Yeah, man. Went to Eastern Michigan University, went for apparel and textiles. Didn't get a lot of big internships from there, but I was attending an Adidas program, so kind of got my first design experience with our college programs, working with coaches and stuff, and doing some of our merchandise. And once graduating, trying to figure out where I was going to go from there. Pencil Footwear Design Academy. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. Created by Dwayne Edwards. They were doing sponsored courses. Yeah, the man, the OG,
Definitely.
the man. They were doing design courses sponsored by brands, and they did one with Adi. Being I had the Adi experience and knew the brand, decided to pursue that opportunity. Ended up being selected. Went out there for the first time to Portland and did the thing with Pinso and Adidas. Participated with Adidas Originals, trying to figure out skateboarding product. And then from there was kind of my first real one-on-one experience with designers, going to headquarters and trying to understand that whole entire process. Then kind of a small shift. My wife now, she had got an internship with the Sacramento Kings at the time. We both were graduating around 2014. Decided to go to Sacramento. Yeah, exactly. Moved to Sacramento. Got a job doing equipment. Then I was doing some equipment stuff in college again, from designing to actually being an equipment manager for one of our sports teams. And that eventually led into a design position for the Sacramento Kings. And from there, that was my first tangible design experience as an intern, and then later as kind of a freelance designer for them. And then I started opening the doors for me to actually, started to land design positions. And so my first gig in footwear was an internship with New Balance. There I was doing performance running. So this is end of 2015, January 2016. Was only there for a few months. Reebok came calling, moved over to those guys in Canton, Massachusetts, and worked on Reebok Classics. And so that was pretty much men's lifestyle footwear, a little bit of collaborations in there as well, and then basketball product. I did that about a few years, moved to Vietnam with Reebok. Started working with our parent company, Adidas, moved over to Adidas basketball when they kind of started this new venture in Los Angeles. Did that for a bit, and then about a year and some change, Nike reached out and ended up poaching me from Adi to join their new category, which was called APF. So this athlete promo footwear. So it was designated player exclusives kind of team, which was super awesome. So again, that only lasted about 3-4 months. And then I got brought in line to join the LeBron James kind of business unit and try to figure out that whole thing. And so been at that for a little over a year, and still figuring out the journey. But that's kind of a big recap, I guess, of how I
No,
ended up
that's
where I got
perfect,
to.
and I think that's a great example for our audience too. Just because of that's a lot of drive, that's a lot of determination, that's a lot of just moving forward, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we talk about a lot, just as far as the having the ambition, right, to do
Mhm.
something that you want to do. So when you have passion, it's not always a straight line.
Nah,
So
never.
just
Yeah.
being able to adjust and continue to grow through those positions. I'm continue to learn even more too, where we have similar backgrounds as well, just in the crossover in the footwear and the sports industry and how that
Yeah.
gets married together,
Mhm.
and then just the other thing is because we just talk about going to where opportunity is, because sometimes you got to seek it out. So that's kind of how we got here together too. You got to seek it out.
Yeah.
But with that, that drive, that's a wonderful story, just as far as
Yeah.
post college, and then just continuing. When you make you're following your passion, it just
Yeah.
it doesn't in real time. You don't know what's the next step, but it's like
Yeah.
being ready for that opportunity. So we
And
love
T
to
Mark,
hear that.
real quick,
Go
T
for it.
Mark, definitely want to shout out Dwayne Edwards, man. Knowing that you were from the Dwayne Edwards tree means so much to me with what me and Shark do, because I had the opportunity to meet Dwayne a few times in the 2000s, and he basically gave me his number, said, "If you need anything, call me." And for him to
Mhm.
be an African American male and be in the state that he was in, it just shows me that years down the line, that was his drive and his goal. So us being minorities, and like T Mark has always told me, once someone is in the door, they are lending their hand to get someone else in the door. So knowing that you're a part of that tree, man, means a whole lot to me, because Dwayne has always been a thorough, just sincere guy since day one. And I was a youngin' when I met him, and he was always sincere.
Yeah.
So now he's doing his own thing with the school and everything else. And seeing that you're
Yeah.
a part of that branch, man, means a whole lot for me, being just African American male and so forth.
Yeah, and to even further, like I guess go back in 2010 when I was going into college, kind of finishing up high school and all that. Before it was Penso's Nike Future Soul, and Dwayne was launching that while he was still director at Brand Jordan, and
Mm-hmm.
I did that competition as well, and I placed top 6 in the country there, and that was like the original first, like, oh, I could potentially do this for real if Nike's willing to recognize me. Then okay, maybe I have something, and for him to even hold a contest like that and to bring young designers up, so it's about what
Nice. So was
14,
that
13.
around like the mellow time?
Yeah,
Was
it
that
was
when
the
models
yep, exactly.
for
Yep.
the
Yep, exactly. I was doing an N7 project, like a Nike free, like Native American inspired kind of runner at the time. I think they had the mellow category. They had a Nike basketball category, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
too. But yeah, I entered a couple of different ones. I figured everyone was going to do Jordan, so I was like, what could I do to kind of get
Go
in
the
there? But
other way.
yeah, but yeah, man, yeah, that was dope. And again, just them being, or him being an African American man in a position of power, and also kind of my first introduction to footwear design being him. Like I didn't know who Tinker Hatfield was, but I knew who Dwayne Edwards and Jason Maiden was. And shout out to both of those dudes, because they provided that blueprint for me, being a kid from inner city, Flint, Michigan, not really having those opportunities, or to your point, just not even really seeing like other like like I guess like career paths. Like everyone just
Yeah.
works in General Motors for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Even like going to college was kind of like a interesting thing. But them two in particular, like being the like a foundation, and that like North Star for me to continue to look back on, even if it was like referencing their career path and how they got to where they got to, or their schools that they went to and the things that they did. That definitely, as a 16-year-old up until now, still serves as a blueprint for me. So that's
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah, it makes it tangible when you have people that look like you
100%.
to look at it ahead of you, and that representation, it definitely gets overlooked, but it means so much, especially to our community. So so yeah.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, so here we go with the great with sense of responsibility just for yourself,
Yeah.
and who you represent, and your family. But at the same time, there's a culture, and you grow up in it, and then you become someone who's seated in behind the scenes to make
I
sure
know,
that
right?
you know you have things that you liked, right, as a
Yeah.
consumer, right, and then now
Yeah.
you cross another door and you bring those things behind the scenes, and that's such an added perspective that someone that's maybe not from the culture
Yeah.
would understand. So when you're some of these projects that you work for, we just wanted to dive into a couple of projects that you like. Some of the favorite projects that you work for. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna guess that some of it might have something to do. Some of the backhand story might have some memory or some nostalgia
exactly.
mixed in to it, whether it's your own or whoever you're working with. So, let's just start off with, a couple projects that you worked on that you're really excited to bring to life for the consumers and the sneaker culture.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'm a fan first, so it's always surreal to me being able to work on some of this stuff. So I always kind of like go back through and again, when I was looking through kind of some of the stuff I worked on, I kind of always start with like being able to work with Iverson. Like growing up, he was the guy like coming in kind of like post Michael Jordan era for me into the sport of basketball and kind of understanding that. And like Wizards Mike was the Jordan I really remember. So Iverson and that T-Mac, that era in the 2000s was like my guy. So being able to work on, his entire line from the questions to the answers to eventually designing 2 shoes with the Iverson legacy, and a couple players in the WNBA and NBA are wearing the I3 solution right now, which is kind of like a remix on the question in like a modern way. Like me being able, like the kid who was buying these shoes, getting these shoes for Christmas to now, have a imprint on his brand legacy and being able to work with him. That's always like super, super surreal for me. And again, I try to bring out a couple things in the mix. So this is like shoe that's out now. So Solution. This is like the early prototype with the dual density foam. We ran into some costing stuff, so it wasn't able to come out exactly how I wanted it to. And again, it was meant to be like a takedown shoe, so it wasn't meant to be like the super like hero kind of performance product. But being able to do what we did at this price point, I was super happy with it. But I wish it was like closer to where we were at here, but at least the consumer got it in a decent spot. And then another one, which I just pulled out of a box real quick, was Cancer 4. So I got to do all that retro product to bring that back. But this was a cool one that we did not come out with. So this is kind of, your 9/11 kind of tribute shoe, Iverson being,
exclusive.
2001 MVP. Yeah, so this one was super dope, man, that it didn't actually make it to retail. We were trying to figure out a drop for this, but it didn't end up making it. But this was one that I was like, yo, it's dope. And it definitely brought me back to that era, like the Cam'rons and, Joel Santana when everyone was super patriotic.
Is that all leather, Xavier?
Yeah, so we got patent in the vamp, and then up top we got a nice tumbled leather, and it just screen printed the flag over the top.
Understood.
So, yeah, but yeah, I really like this, and it's kind of reminiscent of the Kobe American flag joint that
and then that
kind of wearing the
classic model because he gifted them to LeBron.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. So, but again, anything Iverson's always cool. And then going to the Adi side, I know y'all kind of rep DC. I got to represent Gil. Gil's my guy. So these are out in the marketplace now, which that was super surreal for me. And again, that's how I connected with Dan. To begin with, I was actually collecting Gil's being a kid. Like I remember, 06, 07, like not really being able to get the shoes. But when we got to the light switch, like, I didn't understand collaborations. I'd never heard of the store Benihana. I didn't know like how he's on the Halo shoe. Yeah, exactly. None of it matched his uniform, which was like very unheard of at the time. And he had 20 colorways. And I remember going to the Adidas site, checking that stuff out. So once I started, making my own money later in life, I went back and started buying that stuff. And I ended up meeting Dan because they have all these kicks. So I'm like, yo, if y'all got any 13s y'all can come off of, I would love to do it. And then to be the guy to eventually be able to work on this whole Resto Mod project and work with Gil and bring some of these stories back was like the most surreal thing ever because I was buying the shoes a few years before I even got to work on them. So that's always super crazy. So ton of different Gils that you guys I'm sure been seeing coming to retail, but this like 60-point PE dropped on Kobe Staples Center and like again pitching the story to marketing that they weren't even aware of the shoe like as a story and it going forward. It's always those moments. Wow, like I got to be a part of that. So that's cool.
Well, thank you for helping bring those back because that was a especially like the Undercrown and like that was like a Grail shoe at one point in time, and people I guess especially outside of the DC area, you didn't really appreciate Agent Zero for what he was. It was a snapshot in time, just with injuries and things. But like when he was on, like he
had
was
keys to the city,
on.
I know, it's crazy. Like, and even what he was doing from a community standpoint, like with Berry Farms and really allowing the kids to kind of be a part of it. Like, again, me not really understanding at the time, but when you look back, it's like, yo, that was a real moment in time. And again, Gil was kind of a trendsetter with everything, you know, in current sneaker culture. Again, like I said, wearing kicks that wasn't matching the uniform to eventually when he left Adi to like, I'm wearing different brands. I'm wearing lifestyle shoes in the mix. I got Gil watch, like where I'm posting what I'm going to wear before the game and let the fans vote on it.
Yeah.
Like even from
before
his
PJ
blog.
Tucker, there was the sneaker stamp was literally Gilbert Arenas. You know?
When I saw Gilbert put on some Tune Airs and actually in an NBA game, I said, this dude's nuts. This dude is absolutely nuts.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
I think he scored 33 in Tune Airs in an NBA game.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, even the Dolce Gabbana was, you know, the legend is he took them from Nick Young or whatever, but
exactly.
They still made it to the court. And you know, that might have been, I think that was a Lakers game too. But yeah, that just
super
being
crazy.
able to have that versatility. I think we've talked about it on the podcast too, just as far as bringing up Gil and some of his being a sneakerhead, like going back to Arizona. You know, I was just like, this dude is balling in Bo Jackson's, like SC trainers,
man.
like, whoa,
yeah, man.
You could do that. You might as well throw on some Air Force,
I know, right?
Ones too. You know, because you can get away with that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a thing for me too. And I guess I started at Reebok because we have such a rich history when I was with that brand, and a lot of the stuff isn't really known to the modern day sneaker culture. But it's like to really sit down with this product, understand like its impact in the moment that it had, but also like reach out to the original designers, sit down with them to get into the original intent on why they decided to go in this direction. And then it's like pulling even game, like footage of guys in certain shoes. Like I probably done went through thousands of pictures of AI or even Gil. Like I've mapped pretty much every shoe Gil wore from his rookie year to his last season, literally timestamp dates from like running shoes to you name it. So it's really cool to like really dive into like the psyche of kind of the athlete and where they were at. And I mean, a lot of the stuff is colorway bringbacks, but it's also like trying to bring some of that newness to the forefront too. But like, don't leave any stone unturned. Like if it's an opportunity for you to check it out, yeah, you should do that. So like,
definitely. Exactly. Well, speaking of opportunities, man, are there any projects you wish you worked on but didn't get the opportunity to?
Yeah, man, it's a ton. I would say the biggest one I could think of recently was probably the Reebok kind of ice cream bring back stuff when I was at Reebok. Being again like that was a shoe that I always wanted in terms of the ice cream low. I had a couple pair of the board flips, like they went to like clearance outlets, but that was like something you just couldn't touch. And you know, seeing it in the Drop It Like It's Hot video, and Ego and Pharrell and all this stuff back in the day. So again, that was like the other thing. Other than Gills, I went back and started buying ice creams. So I was buying all those shoes, and then it was like when it was time for that collaboration to potentially be a thing, I was like, oh, this is dope. So I was in a few meetings. I did get to work on a couple graphics for a question here and there, but I wasn't really involved like I wanted to. But if it was done properly on like the OG silhouettes and brought back in its true form, I think it could have been cool. But also that may be my old headness coming out. Like, I don't know if the kids would care, but like that was something I really, 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 really wanted to work on, like pretty bad. But on top of mind, probably that. And the next is like at Adi, like Crazy 8 stuff. Like again, it's probably one of the most iconic basketball shoes. But did get to do some of that stuff, which you guys will probably be seeing in the next year or so. But like working on like iterations of it, whether it was a low or like a cleated version that could be played on the field, like just really kind of get that expression across different avenues. And again, that may have went forward in some capacity. I'm not 100% sure, but that was one that I was like really, really trying to fight for. That I don't know if they really seen the vision at the time, but again, that may have been a selfish, take on my own, sneaker.
No, when you have the vision, you gotta stick to it. Yeah, especially those cleated versions. We've talked about some of those transitional things to different cross platforms with the sports and meshing it together because I really that's pretty cool.
That was cool.
Anything else?
I would say like 40th anniversary Air Force One stuff, just because we just came off on that. And I think they did a really good job, and it's really slept on just because the Air Force One isn't the most popular silhouette right now, aside from the white on whites. But they did a lot of good stuff, even like some of the Terror Squad stuff and all that. But if I could have been able to have a little take on a couple models here and there, I did get to work on the Serena Williams Air Force One for her kind of retirement. So I got to do a few colorways for her, which was really cool to kind of capsule her Nike kind of career and everything. But if I could have got a little stab at a couple of those 40th anniversaries on the AF one, could have been cool. But maybe still down the line, I might be able to get something off. But that was like, I can't believe I'm at Nike at the 50th anniversary and 40th anniversary of the Air Force One. I got to do some Air Force Ones, but like, what else could I do? So kind of like opened a can of worms that I wasn't really able to like really fully scratch that itch, but it was cool to like be able to be a part of it to some extent.
No, that's what's up. Especially that Serena, you got to work, with a GOAT collection. That only
Yeah.
enhances your resume too. And
Yeah.
just being able to, that I remember part of that collection is there's a lot of detail on those.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to you and getting those things off the ground.
Yeah.
So like,
And that one was tricky because we only had one shot too, because it was so late.
Really?
That and we had to get something for her before her final matches, I should say. That like it was like whatever gets like comes to the factory and whatever they send back is gonna be it. So we didn't even have a time to like revise or to really think about it. It was kind of like you had to go. So one shot for it to execute so well. I was like happy with it.
So Xavier, given our lack of experience, you just gave a timeline. So what is the typical timeline you usually have to have a project like that? And you said you didn't have that much time.
So it varies. Usually on the inline calendar, you're looking at like, man, for someone like Sig, like a LeBron, you may be looking at something like 2.5 years out to like a year. So everything's kind of perpetual. So like as you're working through the 21 is being worked on, ideas for the 22, and then maybe even like early conceptual stories and ideas around the 23. So everything is kind of working in tandem. So you have a lot of time. I would say a 1.5 calendar is like for typical inline schedule. So yeah, like right now, we work on so many different calendars at this point. I don't even know what season we in at this point. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, if it's summer 23, yeah, you're probably working on finishing up fall to holiday 2024 or spring of 25. So that's usually where you're at. But for promo or like player exclusives, usually you try to get about a 3 to 6 month window. But again, you can't like really predict sports moments or like key things that's happening in an athlete's life. So like we weren't sure Serena was going to retire. It kind of was thought about, but we weren't 100% sure. So again, that's something that took like a week. Like you just got to get something out, and then hopefully they could turn it over within a month to get it back from the production sample. So yeah, it just kind of varies. But promo usually 3 to 6 months. If it's something super quick, like Bronny needs something or Bryce needs something for his high school, that may be something that takes like a week or two that you kind of have time to kind of design that and just try to get it out. And you usually probably only have one shot. So if it comes back bad, they may not get it. If it comes back dope, hopefully, they're happy with it. So just kind of varies. Mm-hmm.
Oh, again, the attention to detail and always being ready because you never know. So this is great insight for, again, peeling back those layers, for what we do over here at our podcast, because people make so many assumptions on why things don't work, but there's so much, that's just the tip of the iceberg is what they're saying. There's so much that has gone in, and, thank you for, illustrating that timeline, because we've talked about it a lot from the retailer perspective and the timeline of rollout for the seasonal campaigns in a retail store. That's a lot of experience over here on my end, but like now you have to add on the time for the actual brand to create the product, create the stories, and then get it out. So no, that's pretty dope. So just transition into this timeline and getting into the details of the process. What are some of the things that you're thinking about when you're going through your creative process? Like where does it start? You have the product, you have a story. Is it both? What's going on in the mind of Xavier when you're bringing something to life from scratch?
Yeah. Well, usually it's like, man, overall, it's like narrative. Like, what story are we trying to tell? Who are we trying to captivate with this product? Where is our athlete at, or where is this person that we're trying to reach, this consumer at? And like really mapping that out first and foremost. And then you kind of get with your product marketing team, who they're kind of like the voice of the consumer, usually closest to the consumer. They get the most market feedback. They're usually in meetings with, the influencers or doing consumer insights and stuff. So they usually have like the best pulse on the business and what's needed. And then it's like you guys kind of collaborate and kind of craft that story and that narrative. And then from a design perspective, whatever's needed on my end is like, trying to blend that in, the best of both worlds with that. But, at a company like Nike, it's so big and we have huge design teams. So we got product design, we got material design, we got color design, we got 3D design. So we're all sitting together trying to figure out what makes sense for this athlete in this moment. And again, it's like you're also trying to forecast the future because you're working on something that, may debut in 2025. So it's like, okay, right now, this is where we are, but where do we see this potentially going? And I mean, for, again, a business like LeBron, has been great having his kids as kind of like a resource, but to potentially take the baton for that LeBron business because, they're budding athletes, looking like they're going to be NBA players. And so as LeBron's career is kind of winding down, we could kind of amp up those players and his kids and his family's narrative a bit more as he's kind of exiting from the game. So again, it's like, will he retire this year or is it going to be next year? Is it going to be a year from now? How do you kind of set that up to be, a good story that's going to really land with consumers so far out? And then again, you got to pivot because nothing ever goes exactly as planned. So it'll probably end up being something a little bit different. But usually it starts with narrative, man, like really, really driving home that story. Really tapping in with whoever that end consumer is, whether that's the athlete or it's like a muse that you have in the space, and like really trying to dive into their psyche and what will really get them going. And then from there, it's like the business and everything kind of takes takes away and kind of puts their hand in the pot as well. So it's definitely a lot of collaboration amongst the business unit, the brand teams, marketing teams, and definitely design teams.
Man, you hit the key word there, collaboration, Xavier. And it sounds like every day is not a boring day when it comes to shoe design. So,
man, the most wildest things happen. Like you'll never like everything from like a vendor stopped producing a certain material that was spec'd, or a color code was wrong and the shoe was supposed to be red and it came back orange. You're like, how did this happen? Like it's always something that's always like, to kind of, deviate from the plan or the vision. But they make the magic work. And again, the factory people are like the unsung heroes, man. Like those people, man, they work magic out of everything. So those are the people who don't get no visibility at all. So shout out to all the workers putting these shoes actually together. So it's kind of crazy to think that like all this stuff is kind of still handmade as much as production and automation is a part of the process. A lot of this is still like hand done. So shout out to those guys on the ground making all this beautiful stuff come to life too. So
definitely,
yeah, there you go. That's real soul material, right there.
Sure. For
in
sure.
its raw essence.
Yeah, for sure.
Xavier, you mentioned in your intro that you moved around a lot to seek opportunities. You might just take in a couple minutes to give us your experience overseas. You mentioned Vietnam, and I'm working at the Reebok Adidas Creation Center.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that was an opportunity that came up, man. That was like super, super awesome. I don't know if you guys are familiar. We have a thing called team travel, where usually if you're in product creation, you leave and you go to Asia for a week or two, most maybe a month to like work and massage through the season, kind of seasonal product. So I had been to Vietnam a couple times, China a couple times, but the opportunity came up to actually live abroad, which I wasn't really expecting, but I had heard good things about it. And again, as a person coming from a place where I just kind of had to take a leap of faith along the way, I was like, what is, because like leaving Michigan for me was like a huge step, but it was like, okay, I did it, where I guess I can move to another state. So then I bounced around all these different states, and then it was like, well, leaving the country could be cool. And I did that, and I was like, well, I think I could live anywhere. So initially it was a little bit of culture shock those first 3 to 6 months, because when you're in a team travel, you're in the factory all day making revisions, and it's like, you're going to go home, but once it sets in, no, this is home now. It was a little different. So I spent about 2.5 years there, and again, just settled in, got to, really embrace the culture. Love living in Ho Chi Minh City, would commute to Dong Nai and some of the provinces where a lot of production goes on. It's a growing economy, definitely developing country. So they're really big in production of all things. Just footwear is one of the things that they're really, really good at. So it's cool to see that. But yeah, man, it was really a great experience, man. Like, again, the food, again, it's a huge international city as well. So they have some of the best food from all cultures too. Like it's seen as just like, especially Americans, like the first thing we think of is like the Vietnam War and this kind of place. But it's like, no, it's a beautiful city. Sure, it has rural pockets and stuff, but it's an international city with, some of the best things you can ever imagine. So that was a great, great opportunity. But what it really did was just open up my mind to more opportunities and, not putting yourself in a box at all. Like I definitely feel like I could live anywhere and experience anything after that. So it was super dope for me, man. Like I would suggest anyone, if you had the opportunity to live abroad and experience a different culture aside from the US, like go for it. Cause I thought it could have been valuable, but it was way more valuable than I ever imagined. So it's really cool.
Cool. That definitely, adds perspective, just
Yeah.
from that, that global, experience, and just being able to, like you said, just get outside of your box, and then
Mhm.
like, that's how trend spotting and all those things come into life when when your vision is open, and just being able to accept all the different forms of the inversions of the culture, and being able to translate it. So
Yeah.
that's a good skill
Yeah.
to acquire.
Yeah.
Everyone might not have it, but being able to grow into that and being comfortable in your own skin, that's why
Mhm.
you get the success that you get, because it's authentic, and
Yeah.
you strive for that.
Yep. Yeah, and then to give a little bit of background on what I was doing there, so Reebok and Adidas had this creation center there, and again, the idea was to get product to market faster. So instead of the year and a half I just spoke to, you could get some to market potentially in 3 to 6 months because you're at the factory. So it was more so due to kind of serve gaps in the marketplace, mainly a Reebok core. So that's like sub $100 product. So if Korea comes and say, yo, we need this new runner for $65, it's like, okay, can we get that to actually happen? And how many pairs can we forecast to get made out of this factory? All right, let's go for it. And because your dedicated resources there, you can actually figure that out a little bit faster than waiting to get samples shipped across seas, lost at sea, have to make a new batch, send it back over to Boston, wait for it. It's more like you can just get it done in the time, and and go to the actual production line and like, yo, I want to make this change on the fly. You get pullovers and revisions a couple times a day instead of waiting a month to get something shipped to you. So it was more so based on like speed and trying to make the business a little bit more efficient. And then again, to your point for trends, so initially we were kind of serving all of core, and then we started to kind of focus on key regions, again being China, Japan, Korea, and then even Western Europe to a bit. Like if they wanted like a trail shoe or something like a hiking boot, how do we figure that out to get to them a little bit faster? And so it was a little bit of all that, and then we started bringing in collaborations, like regional collaborations and stuff in the APAC area in Asia. So it became a little bit of everything, but initially, yeah, it was more so like a speed and efficiency kind of exercise with our design team.
Wow, yeah, that's really hands-on. If we can shrink a timeline that much that you just described, just by being more on location and just centralizing the process,
Yeah,
so you can get to the end of that assembly line a lot quicker. So
yep,
again, I think that's what will. I think we're in good hands for the
yeah,
future too,
absolutely.
because those are great leadership qualities,
Uh,
for the future as well. Just having those
mhm,
hands on, and now you can help direct a little bit more. You always,
mhm.
when you touch something, it makes it tangible,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then you can let it flourish. So just one
Mhm.
more sneaker related question before we get into some more business topics related to
Okay.
the industry. Just getting into, again, gave us some insight to your creative process, and then how you have gotten inside of the process. But just speak from now, where let's go inside out of the soul material style, where it's more of the you're on the inside, you're creating, but like, what is the intent for the consumer? You know what I mean? Like, what would you want them to think when they first pick up the Iverson Legacy or whatever
Yeah.
product it is? Like, what's some of that intent? Like, you want the first person to pick it up and think what?
Man, I just want them to love the shoe, and however they're going to use it, man, like let that be a part of that journey. Again, I think I was kind of saying like I'm a little bit biased to performance product a little bit because like something you actually got to put on the court and you get to experience it. But lifestyle shoes is the same thing, man. Like if you could pick up a shoe and it makes you feel better about your day, or you had a moment in your life that you'll always remember what you were rocking, like that's always the goal. And that could be something that's $60. Like people buy $60 shoes too. Like you don't got to be the most
Thank
hype,
you for
rare
saying.
Yes.
collab piece or whatever. But man, yeah, just for people to cherish it. Like I always look at on my childhood, some of my best memories were shoes that may have not been the creme de the creme or the most sought after, but it was like, yo, I really had moments in the shoe that I really enjoyed, whether it was playing in or just walking or getting them for school. Those are moments that people and consumers really will cherish. And so man, that's the goal for me, man. If I'm working on on a $50 shoe or a $250 shoe. Like, yeah, I just want you to love it and have a moment with it. Like, if it gets critically acclaimed or the resale value is just on StockX, sure, that's cool. That's a plus. But like, that's definitely not what I do it for. I just want to make the average Joe happy if I can.
Nice, and thank you for saying that because we strive so much with our audience to just say, like, make it your own, have your own story. It's it doesn't matter how much something costs. It's kind of like music. Sometimes you remember a moment in time, and like when a song plays, you're like, remember when I first heard that? What was going on? It's like those happy thoughts. And even if you didn't get to have the shoe when you were a kid, but you wanted it. That window shopping, or we did a whole episode on East Bay where you're going through the magazine and you circle what you want, and then maybe you get it later, maybe you don't. But it was just more of that nostalgic feeling. So just so for our audience, again, from beginning to end, we want you to just make your journey inside of the culture.